The glass slammed down so hard it cracked the mahogany beneath it, and Quinn Foster understood 3 things instantly. Her boss was unhinged. She'd just said something catastrophically wrong, and the way Sterling Blackwood was staring at her suggested this wasn't about professionalism anymore. What she didn't realize was that Not Yet had just painted a target on her back, and Victor Stone was already loading the gun. But let's rewind to how a simple question about boyfriends became the moment that changed everything. Do you have a boyfriend? Quinn Foster froze with the quarterly reports still balanced in her arms. She'd been working at Blackwood Holdings for exactly 17 days, long enough to memorize which executives took their coffee black and short enough that she still rehearsed what to say before knocking on the CEO's door. And now Finn O'Malley, the Capo everyone treated like dangerous royalty, was leaning against her desk like he owned it, asking her the kind of personal question she'd spent years learning to deflect. Quinn forced a professional smile, the kind that had gotten her through worse situations. Not yet, Mr. O'Malley. The words landed like a gunshot in a cathedral. Because Sterling Blackwood, the man who owned the building, the company, and the empire that stretched into territories, Quinn didn't want to think about, emerged from his office at exactly the wrong moment. He stopped mid-stride in the hallway. His shoulders locked, his jaw went rigid, and his eyes, slate gray and sharp enough to cut glass, fixed on Quinn with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. It lasted maybe 2 seconds. But Quinn felt every nerve in her body light up with the primal understanding that she'd just stepped into something dangerous. Then Sterling moved. He turned on his heel, walked back into the conference room where his crystal tumbler of whiskey sat on the mahogany table, picked up the heavy glass with deliberate precision, and slammed it down with enough force to crack the wood beneath it. The sound was deafening. Ice scattered across polished mahogany. Amber liquid splashed onto the financial reports Sterling had been reviewing. The glass itself spiderwebbed but didn't shatter, which somehow made the violence worse, more controlled, more terrifying. The entire floor went silent. Finn O'Malley's grin widened like a man watching his favorite show. Oh, boss, easy there. Sterling didn't acknowledge him. His focus stayed locked on Quinn, and that stare alone made her knees weak. She had no idea why he looked furious or betrayed or both. She told herself she didn't need his approval for having a personal life, though the truth was she hadn't had time for one since taking this job. Miss Foster. Sterling's voice was dangerously soft, the kind of quiet that preceded violence. My office, now. Finn leaned closer to Quinn, stage whispering with obvious delight. Someone's jealous. Quinn nearly dropped the reports. No, stop, he's not. Oh, sweetheart, he absolutely is. Finn's eyes danced with amusement. This is the most entertainment I've had in months. Please stop talking, Quinn hissed, her face burning. Sterling was already walking toward his private office, clearly expecting her to follow. Quinn shot Finn a murderous look and hurried after the CEO, her heels clicking too loud in the shocked silence. Chapter 1, The Office Interrogation. Quinn closed Sterling's office door behind her with hands that trembled slightly. Sterling stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, his back to her, shoulders tight with barely contained tension. He didn't speak immediately, just stood there, radiating controlled fury. Quinn shifted her weight, unsure what to do with the reports still clutched against her chest. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. You seem distracted, Sterling finally said, his voice measured. I'm not, Quinn replied quickly. Finn was just being Finn. That's exactly the problem. Sterling turned to face her, and the raw emotion in his eyes made her take an involuntary step back. He caught himself immediately, closing his eyes briefly, visibly fighting for control. Quinn watched the transformation with fascination and terror. She'd never seen Sterling Blackwood lose his composure. The man was legendary for his ice-cold control, his ability to make billion-dollar decisions without a flicker of emotion. And she'd shattered that with 2 words. Did I do something wrong? Quinn asked carefully. Sterling moved to his desk, gripping the edge hard enough that his knuckles went white. No, the silence stretched again. But you should avoid conversations like that during work hours, he added, the words sounding forced. Quinn blinked. Conversations like what? Sterling opened his mouth, then closed it again, clearly fighting with the words he wanted to say, versus the ones he could justify professionally. For a man who commanded empires and controlled criminal operations with absolute authority, he looked almost uncomfortable. Quinn bit the inside of her cheek to stop herself from smiling. Are you seriously upset because someone asked me if I have a boyfriend? No, Sterling said too quickly. So you're not upset? I didn't say that either. This time Quinn couldn't stop the small laugh that escaped. She turned away, pretending to organize the reports on the side table, hiding her face. She didn't want to push him. This man could end her career with a single phone call. But the way he was behaving, the barely contained jealousy, the obvious internal war, no one had ever reacted to her like that. Sterling walked around his desk and sat down, but even seated, he carried a presence that dominated the room. His fingers drummed once on the polished surface, the only tell that his famous control was still fractured. "We have a strategy meeting in 45 minutes, he said, voice returning to its usual deep authority. "You'll accompany me. Take notes. These investors ask unpredictable questions, and I need someone sharp enough to track the conversation." Quinn nodded, stepping closer to accept the folder he held out. Their fingers brushed a small, accidental touch, but it was enough to make them both go still. Sterling's gaze dropped to her hand for a brief moment before he cleared his throat and pulled back. "I'll need you ready in 30 minutes. "I'll be ready," Quinn said softly. He nodded once, but his jaw clenched again, that tell that said he was fighting something he didn't want to name. Quinn turned to leave, but Sterling's voice stopped her at the door. "Miss Foster." She looked back. His expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes were still dark with whatever emotion he was wrestling. "Your personal life is your own business," he said, the words clearly costing him. "But Finn O'Malley is not someone you should encourage." Quinn's eyebrows rose. "I wasn't encouraging." "I know." Sterling's jaw tightened. "Just be careful who you trust in this building." It should have sounded like professional advice. But the way he said it, the possessive edge beneath the words, made it clear he was talking about something else entirely. Quinn left his office with her heart pounding and her mind racing. Sterling Blackwood, the most controlled man she'd ever met, had just lost his composure over her relationship status. And God help her, some part of her liked it. The strategy meeting was exactly as intense as Sterling had promised. He spoke with the kind of confidence that silenced boardrooms, his presentation flawless, his responses to investor challenges sharp and decisive. Quinn followed his cues, handed him documents before he asked, and answered technical questions with the precision he demanded. When they finally stepped back into the hallway 2 hours later, Sterling looked at her with something close to approval. "You handled that well," he said. "Thank you. I didn't want to disappoint you." "You didn't." His voice softened for the first time that day. "You're better than most people who've had this position for years." Quinn's chest warmed. She tried to hide the smile, ducking her head as they walked together toward her workstation. She should have known the reprieve wouldn't last, because when they turned the corner, Finn O'Malley was leaning against Quinn's desk again, grinning like a man who'd just won a bet. Chapter 2. Finn's Amusement. "Back already?" Finn asked, his eyes dancing with mischief. "That was quick. Tell me, Foster, did the boss grill you about your dating life? Or did he just brood silently while pretending to care about quarterly projections?" Quinn sighed. "Finn, I still didn't get an answer, you know," Finn continued, completely ignoring her warning tone. "I did answer." No. I didn't ask why you don't have a boyfriend yet. That's the real question." Finn tilted his head, studying her with exaggerated curiosity. "Smart, beautiful, competent, what's the holdup, Foster?" Quinn opened her mouth to respond, but Sterling moved so fast she didn't have time to process it. He stepped between Quinn and Finn with the kind of controlled aggression that made the air temperature drop 10 degrees. "Finn," Sterling said, his voice sharp enough to cut steel. "Find something productive to do." Finn lifted his hands in mock surrender, but his grin didn't falter. "Hey boss, I'm just making conversation. Getting to know our newest team member. You know, normal workplace interaction. Make it somewhere else." "You're being very territorial about someone who's not yet taken," Finn said, deliberately quoting Quinn's earlier answer. "Interesting choice of words, by the way, Foster. Not yet implies you're open to offers. Should I tell the single guys on the 12th floor? Or are we keeping this opportunity exclusive?" Sterling's hand moved to Finn's shoulder, not violently, but with enough pressure to make his point. "My office. Now." For the first time since Quinn had met him, Finn O'Malley actually looked concerned. He gave Quinn a quick wink. "You're in trouble, but it's the adorable kind," and followed Sterling down the hallway. Quinn stood frozen at her desk, unsure whether to be mortified or impressed. Around her, the other analysts were suddenly very interested in their computer screens, clearly pretending they hadn't just witnessed their CEO claim territorial rights over the new hire. 20 minutes later, Finn emerged from Sterling's office looking thoroughly entertained rather than chastised. He stopped by Quinn's desk one more time, leaning in close enough that only she could hear. "Just so you know," Finn said quietly, "I've worked for Sterling Blackwood for 8 years. I've seen him negotiate billion-dollar deals without blinking. I've watched him stare down armed rivals without flinching. I've never, and I mean never, seen him lose control like he did today. Finn straightened, his grin returning. Whatever you did, Foster, you got under his skin. And that's either the best thing or the worst thing that could have happened to you. Before Quinn could respond, Finn was gone, whistling as he headed toward the elevators. The rest of the day passed in tense normalcy. Quinn buried herself in work, trying to ignore the whispers that followed her through the office. By 6 p.m., most of the floor had cleared out, leaving Quinn alone with her spreadsheets and the uncomfortable awareness that Sterling's office light was still on. At 6:30, an email pinged into her inbox. From s.blackwood@blackwoodholdings.com. Subject: Philadelphia Acquisition. Confidential. Message: Miss Foster, effective immediately. You are reassigned to the Philadelphia Acquisition Project. This is a confidential, high-priority deal, requiring complete discretion. You will report directly to me and only to me. All work must be conducted in the secure conference room or my private office. No exceptions. We begin tomorrow at 7 a.m. SB. Quinn read the email 3 times, her stomach doing complicated things. This was either a professional opportunity or a trap, possibly both. She was about to close her laptop when another email arrived. From s.blackwood@blackwoodholdings.com. Subject: No subject. Message: And Quinn, don't be late. He'd used her first name, in writing. That felt significant in ways she didn't want to examine. Quinn gathered her things and headed for the elevator, hyper-aware of Sterling's office door still closed, his silhouette visible through the frosted glass. She told herself this was just business. Sterling needed someone competent for a sensitive deal, and she happened to be available. She almost believed it. The next morning, Quinn arrived at 6:55 a.m., determined to be early. Sterling was already in the secure conference room, surrounded by files and looking like he'd been there for hours. He glanced up when she entered, his expression unreadable. Good. You're here. He gestured to the chair beside him. Not across from him. Beside him. We have a lot to cover. For the next 3 hours, they worked in intense focus. Sterling walked Quinn through the Philadelphia deal with meticulous detail, explaining not just the financials but the political maneuvering, the rival bidders, the pressure points they could exploit. He spoke to her like an equal, valued her input, and by 10 a.m., Quinn had forgotten to be nervous. You see the problem here, Sterling said, pointing to a section of the contract. If we structure it this way, we save on taxes but expose ourselves to regulatory scrutiny. But if we split the acquisition into 2 phases, Quinn said, leaning closer to study the document, we stay under the reporting threshold and avoid the scrutiny entirely. Sterling went very still. That's actually brilliant. Quinn looked up and realized how close they were sitting. Close enough to see the silver flecks in his gray eyes. Close enough to smell his cologne. Something expensive and understated. Close enough that when Sterling's gaze dropped to her mouth for half a second, she felt it like a physical touch. Sterling pulled back abruptly, standing and moving to the windows. Take an hour for lunch. We'll resume at 1. Sterling. Mr. Blackwood, he corrected. His voice sharp. Quinn flinched. Mr. Blackwood. I just wanted to. 1 p.m., Miss Foster. Don't be late. He left the conference room without looking back, and Quinn sat alone, surrounded by confidential files and the uncomfortable awareness that whatever was happening between them was getting more complicated by the hour. By the end of the week, Quinn had spent more time alone with Sterling than with the rest of the office combined. The whispers had evolved from curiosity to speculation to outright betting pools. Finn was apparently running one, with odds on how long before Sterling either fired Quinn or did something dramatically inappropriate. Quinn tried not to care. She focused on the work, on proving she deserved this assignment based on merit, rather than whatever complicated emotions Sterling was wrestling with. But it was getting harder to ignore, especially when Sterling started finding excuses to keep her late, to call her into his office for urgent matters that could have been handled over email, to position himself between her and any male colleague who approached her desk. You're being ridiculous, Quinn finally told him on Friday evening, when he'd materialized out of nowhere to interrupt her conversation with an analyst from the legal department. I'm being protective, Sterling corrected coldly. That analyst works for Victor Stone's legal team. Did you know that? Quinn's stomach dropped. What? Victor Stone, my primary competitor for the Philadelphia deal, the man who would love nothing more than to plant a mole in my operation. Sterling's eyes were hard. So forgive me if I'm cautious about who you're having friendly conversations with. I was asking him about zoning regulations. I don't care what you were asking him about. Stay away from anyone connected to Victor Stone. That's not a request, Quinn. That's a direct order. He was using her first name again. And giving her orders. Quinn's temper, held carefully in check for weeks, finally snapped. You don't get to control who I talk to. Yes, Sterling said quietly, dangerously. I do. Chapter 3. The Engineered Proximity. The summons came via text at 9 p.m. on Sunday night, just as Quinn was settling in with a glass of wine and the false hope of a normal weekend. Sterling Blackwood. Philadelphia meeting moved to tomorrow. We fly out at 6 a.m. Pack for 3 days. Quinn stared at her phone. No, please. No, if you're available. Just the assumption that she'd drop everything and comply. She should refuse. Should tell him that she had a life outside work, that she needed more than 9 hours' notice for a 3-day trip. But the Philadelphia deal was worth $400 million. And if she wanted to prove herself in this company, refusing wasn't an option. Quinn, I'll be there. Sterling Blackwood, good. And Quinn pack professionally. We'll be entertaining clients. The private jet was smaller than Quinn expected, configured for business, with leather seating, a small conference table, and enough technology to run a small country. Sterling was already on board when she arrived at 5:55 a.m., looking fresh and alert despite the early hour. On time, he noted, which might have been approval. I'm always on time. I know. Sterling gestured to the seat across from him. We have 18 hours before the first meeting. I need you completely briefed on every aspect of this deal. It was going to be a long flight. They worked steadily for the first 3 hours, reviewing documents, running financial scenarios, discussing strategy. Sterling was demanding but fair, pushing Quinn to defend her analysis but actually listening when she did. Somewhere over Ohio, they fell into a rhythm that felt almost comfortable. You're better at this than my last 3 analysts combined, Sterling said, making a note on the document between them. Your last 3 analysts probably didn't have $125,000 in student debt motivating them, Quinn replied before she could stop herself. Sterling's pen stopped moving. He looked up slowly, his eyes sharp. Is that why you took this job? The salary? Quinn felt her face heat. I took this job because it's a good opportunity. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. They stared at each other across the small table, the air between them charged with something Quinn didn't want to name. Sterling looked like he wanted to push, to demand she explain the comment, but he just returned to the documents. Your personal finances are your business, he said finally. But if you're in over your head, I'm not asking for help. I didn't offer any. Sterling's voice was carefully neutral. I'm just saying that if financial stress is affecting your work, it's not. Good. But Sterling's jaw was tight, and Quinn had the uncomfortable feeling that he'd just filed that information away for later. They landed in Philadelphia at 2 p.m. local time. The hotel was exactly what Quinn expected. 5-star, downtown, the kind of place that catered to people who thought nothing of $800 a night rooms. Sterling checked them in with smooth efficiency, then handed Quinn a key card. 8th floor, room 847. We have dinner with the sellers at 7. Wear something appropriate. Quinn looked at the key card, then at Sterling. We're not on the same floor? No. You're on 8. I'm on 12. Sterling's expression was unreadable. Is that a problem? No. Quinn stopped herself. What had she expected? That they'd have adjoining rooms? Never mind. 7 p.m. I'll be ready. Sterling caught her wrist as she turned to leave, his grip gentle but firm. Quinn. She looked back. The people we're meeting tonight are sharks. They'll test you. Try to find weaknesses. See if you're actually competent or just decorative. His thumb brushed against her pulse point. Whether deliberately or accidentally, she couldn't tell. Don't let them rattle you. You're smarter than all of them combined. It was the closest thing to a compliment she'd heard from him, and it hit harder than it should have. I can handle myself, Quinn said softly. I know. Sterling released her wrist. That's why you're here. Dinner was exactly as challenging as Sterling had warned. The sellers, 3 men in their 60s who ran Philadelphia's oldest commercial real estate firm, spent the first course testing Quinn with increasingly technical questions about zoning law, tax implications, and structural engineering. She answered every question with calm precision, watching their skepticism transform into reluctant respect. Sterling sat beside her, saying little, but Quinn felt his presence like a physical weight. Every time one of the sellers got too aggressive in their questioning, Sterling would shift slightly, a subtle reminder that Quinn wasn't alone. By dessert, they'd secured preliminary agreement on the deal structure. The lead seller, a man named Howard Chen, lifted his wine glass in Quinn's direction. I have to admit, Mr. Blackwood, when you said you were bringing your analyst, I expected someone different. Different how? Sterling's voice had gone dangerously quiet. Younger, less experienced. Chen's smile didn't reach his eyes. More decorative than functional. Quinn felt Sterling go rigid beside her, but she spoke before he could. Mr. Chen, I graduated top of my class from Wharton, spent 3 years at Morrison and Klein, and have personally closed $2.3 billion in commercial acquisitions. If you were expecting decorative, I'm afraid you've confused me with someone who cares about your outdated assumptions about women in finance. The table went silent. Then Chen laughed, genuinely laughed. I like her, Blackwood. She's got spine. Yes, Sterling said, his voice tight. She does. After dinner? Sterling and Quinn walked back to the hotel in charged silence. The Philadelphia streets were busy with Friday night crowds, but Quinn was hyper-aware only of Sterling beside her, close enough that their arms occasionally brushed. You didn't need to defend yourself, Sterling said finally. I would have handled Chen. I know, but I wanted to handle him myself. Why? Quinn stopped walking, forcing Sterling to stop too. Because if I let you fight every battle for me, people will assume I'm here because of you, not because I earned it. And I need them to know I earned it. Sterling studied her face in the streetlight, something complicated moving through his expression. They already know that, Quinn. The way you handled yourself tonight, there's not a person in that room who doubts your competence. Except maybe you. I've never doubted your competence. Sterling stepped closer, close enough that Quinn had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. What I doubt is my ability to maintain professional distance when you're around. Quinn's breath caught. Sterling, I know this is inappropriate. I know I'm your employer and you're my subordinate, and there are 1,000 reasons this is a terrible idea. His hand came up, fingers grazing her cheek. But watching you in that conference room, watching you hold your own against men twice your age with half your intelligence, watching you be brilliant and fierce and absolutely unshakable, he stopped himself, stepping back abruptly. I apologize. That was out of line. Was it? Quinn's heart was pounding, because it didn't feel out of line. Sterling's eyes darkened. You should go up to your room, Quinn. Before I do something we'll both regret. What if I don't want to go? Then you're more dangerous than I thought. Sterling's jaw tightened. Go, now, please. The please did it. Quinn nodded and headed into the hotel, feeling Sterling's eyes on her the entire way to the elevator. When she finally reached her room, she found a bottle of expensive champagne waiting, with a note in Sterling's handwriting. Well done tonight. You impressed everyone in that room, including me. S. Quinn sat on the edge of the bed, holding the note, and realized with startling clarity that she was in serious trouble, because Sterling Blackwood demanding, controlling, impossibly complicated Sterling Blackwood was getting under her skin in ways she couldn't afford. And judging by the way he'd looked at her tonight, the feeling was mutual. Chapter 4. The Threat Surfaces. The phone call came while Quinn was reviewing contracts in her hotel room at midnight. Too wired from the evening to sleep. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Quinn Foster? The voice was male, smooth, unfamiliar. Who is this? Someone who knows you're carrying $85,000 in student debt and another $40,000 in medical bills from your mother's treatment last year. Someone who knows you're 3 months behind on payments. Someone who knows exactly how desperate you are to keep this job. A pause. My name is Victor Stone, and I think we should have a conversation. Quinn's blood went cold. How did you... I make it my business to know vulnerabilities, Miss Foster. Especially when those vulnerabilities belong to people working for Sterling Blackwood. Victor's voice was pleasant, almost friendly. Don't hang up. I'm not threatening you. I'm offering you an opportunity. I'm not interested. You haven't heard the offer yet. I don't need to. Quinn's hand was shaking. Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying. Not even if it clears your debt entirely? Not even if it gives you the freedom to walk away from Blackwood and his demanding employment? Victor's laugh was soft. Come on, Quinn. You're smarter than that. At least hear me out. The answer is no. Then let me make this simple. I need information about Blackwood's upcoming acquisitions. Specifically, details about the Philadelphia deal you're working on right now. You provide that information, I clear your debt and throw in a 6-figure signing bonus. Easy transaction. Everyone wins. That's corporate espionage. That's business, Victor said, his tone hardening slightly. And before you self-righteously refuse, consider this. Sterling Blackwood isn't the legitimate businessman he pretends to be. The corporate empire? That's the surface. Underneath, he's running operations that would make your stomach turn. Money laundering, extortion, strategic accidents for rivals who get too close. So don't pretend you're protecting some noble employer. You're protecting a criminal who happens to sign your paychecks. I'm hanging up now. One more thing, Quinn. Victor's voice went cold. Those medical bills for your mother? The collectors are getting impatient. It would be a shame if she lost access to her treatment because you were too proud to accept help. Think about it. I'll call again tomorrow. The line went dead. Quinn sat frozen on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone. Her mother, Victor Stone, knew about her mother's ongoing treatment, knew about the bills Quinn was drowning in, knew exactly which pressure points to exploit. She should tell Sterling, should walk down to his room right now and explain what just happened. But Victor's words echoed in her mind. Sterling Blackwood isn't the legitimate businessman he pretends to be. Was it true? Was she working for someone involved in actual criminal operations? And if she was, what did that make her? Quinn didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to decide what to do. By 6 a.m., she'd made a decision. She'd tell Sterling about the call, but she'd also do some research on Victor Stone and find out if his allegations had any truth to them. The breakfast meeting was tense. Sterling seemed to sense something was wrong, but Quinn deflected his questions with work talk. They spent the day in negotiations, and by the time they returned to New York that evening, Quinn had almost convinced herself to just forget Victor Stone's call entirely. Then her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Unknown. Your mother's treatment center called. Apparently there's a $40,000 past due balance they need resolved by Friday, or they'll have to discontinue her care. That's unfortunate timing. Unless you'd like to reconsider my offer? VS. Quinn's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. Friday. That was 3 days away. 3 days to come up with $40,000 she didn't have, or her mother would lose access to the experimental treatment that was keeping her cancer in remission. She looked up to find Sterling watching her from across the plane, his expression concerned. Quinn? What's wrong? Nothing. Just, she couldn't finish the lie. The words stuck in her throat. Sterling crossed to her seat, crouching down so they were eye level. Tell me. And God help her. Quinn did. She told him about Victor Stone's call, about the debt, about her mother's treatment and the Friday deadline. She watched Sterling's expression go from concerned to absolutely murderous. That son of a... Sterling caught himself, visibly fighting for control. Victor Stone threatened your mother? He offered to help, Quinn said, though the words felt wrong, in exchange for information. That's not help, that's extortion. Sterling pulled out his phone. How much do you need? What? For your mother's treatment. How much? Quinn's stomach twisted. Sterling, I can't. It's not a loan. It's not charity. It's me handling a threat against someone under my protection. Sterling's eyes were hard. Victor Stone is using your vulnerability to get to me. That makes this my problem. So how much, Quinn? $40,000 for this month. But there's more the past due amounts. The ongoing treatment. Quinn's voice cracked. It's not your responsibility. It is now. Sterling made a call, speaking in low, clipped tones. When he hung up, he looked at Quinn with an expression she couldn't read. It's handled. The full balance is being paid tonight, and I'm setting up a trust to cover all future treatment. Your mother won't lose her care. Quinn felt tears threaten. Why would you do that? Because Victor Stone just made a critical mistake. He thought threatening you would give him leverage over me. Sterling's smile was cold, dangerous. He was right, but not in the way he expected. Chapter 5. Testing the boundaries. Quinn should have felt relieved. Sterling had eliminated her most pressing financial crisis with a single phone call, and her mother's treatment was secure. But instead of relief, she felt trapped, because now she owed Sterling Blackwood in ways that had nothing to do with employment, and that debt felt more dangerous than any amount of money. For 3 days, she avoided him, took her lunch breaks early, stayed late after he'd left, responded to his emails with professional efficiency but nothing more. She told herself she needed space to process what had happened, to figure out how she felt about working for a man who could solve a $200,000 problem with the same ease most people ordered coffee. On the 4th day, Sterling cornered her. Quinn was leaving the building at 7 p.m., thinking she'd successfully avoided him again, when his hand caught her elbow in the parking garage. We need to talk, Sterling said, his voice leaving no room for argument. I have plans. Cancel them. Quinn pulled her arm free, anger flaring. You don't get to order me around outside of work hours. You've been avoiding me for 4 days. I'm done being patient. Sterling gestured to his car, a sleek black Mercedes that probably cost more than Quinn's annual salary. Get in. Or what? or I'll follow you home and we'll have this conversation in your apartment. Your choice." Quinn glared at him, but got in the car. Sterling drove in tense silence until they reached his penthouse, because of course he was taking her to his penthouse, and then led her inside with controlled precision. The space was exactly what Quinn expected. Modern, expensive, cold, floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking Manhattan, furniture that looked like art, everything perfectly ordered and controlled. Just like Sterling. "Why have you been avoiding me?" Sterling asked, pouring himself a drink without offering her one. "I haven't been..." "Don't lie to me, Quinn. You've taken 3 different lunch schedules to avoid the executive dining room. You've rerouted through the service elevator to avoid passing my office. And you've responded to exactly 12 work emails while ignoring 8 personal messages." Sterling's eyes were sharp. "So I'll ask again. Why are you avoiding me?" Quinn crossed her arms. "Because you paid off my debts without asking. Because you're making decisions about my life without my input. Because I don't know if I can trust you." "You don't trust me." Sterling's laugh was bitter. "I just ensured your mother has medical care for the rest of her life, and you don't trust me? You did it to control me. I did it to protect you." Sterling slammed his glass down hard enough to crack it. "Victor Stone was using your mother's health as leverage. I eliminated that leverage. How is that control? Because now I owe you, and I can't." Quinn's voice broke. "I can't owe you, Sterling. Not like this." Sterling went very still. "You think I want you indebted to me? Don't you?" "What I want," Sterling said quietly, dangerously, "is for you to be safe. What I want is for Victor Stone to have 0 leverage over you. What I want is for you to look at me without that fear in your eyes." He took a step closer. "But if you think I'm keeping some kind of running tab, if you think I'm going to use your mother's health as leverage the way Stone tried to, I don't know what to think." Quinn's hands were shaking. "You slammed a glass because Finn asked if I had a boyfriend. You restructured my entire job to keep me under your direct supervision. You paid off 6 figures of debt like it was nothing. And now you're angry that I need space to process all of that? I'm angry that you think I would hurt you." Sterling's voice went quiet. "I'm a lot of things, Quinn. I'm controlling and possessive. And I've done things that would horrify you. But I would never use your vulnerabilities against you. Never." Quinn searched his face, looking for the lie, the manipulation. But all she saw was raw honesty, and something that looked painfully like hurt. "Then what do you want from me?" she asked quietly. Sterling closed his eyes. "I want you to stop looking at every kind gesture like it's a trap. I want you to trust that when I say I'm protecting you, that's all I'm doing. I want..." He stopped himself. "It doesn't matter what I want." "Yes, it does." "No, Quinn, it doesn't. Because what I want is completely inappropriate given our professional relationship. What I want would compromise everything we've built. What I want is..." Sterling opened his eyes, and the intensity in them stole Quinn's breath. "It's not something I can have." They stared at each other across the expanse of his pristine living room, and Quinn felt something shift inside her chest. This wasn't about debt or control or professional boundaries. This was about 2 people who'd somehow ended up on the edge of something terrifying and inevitable. "What if I want it too?" Quinn whispered. Sterling's jaw tightened. Then we're both in serious trouble. Before Quinn could respond, Sterling's phone rang. He answered with a clipped, "What?" Then went absolutely still, his expression transforming into something lethal. "When?" A pause. "And you're sure it was Stone's people?" Another pause. "Lock down the building. No one in or out without clearance. I'll be there in 10 minutes. He hung up and looked at Quinn with an expression that made her stomach drop. "What happened?" "Victor Stone just sent someone to your apartment. They picked the lock, searched the place, and left a message." Sterling's voice was terrifyingly calm. "You're not going back there. You're staying here where I can protect you." "Sterling, I can't just..." "This isn't a request, Quinn." Victor Stone just escalated from phone calls to breaking and entering. That means he's getting desperate. And desperate people are dangerous. Sterling moved to a panel on the wall, pressing something that made the windows tint to opacity. "Pack a bag tomorrow when we go to collect your things with security. But tonight, you stay here." Quinn wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could take care of herself, that she didn't need Sterling's protection or his penthouse or his controlled, dangerous world. But the thought of someone breaking into her apartment, searching through her things, leaving a message from Victor Stone, it made her feel violated and scared in ways she didn't want to admit. "What did the message say?" she asked quietly. Sterling's expression went even colder. It said, "Time's running out. Make the right choice." Chapter 6. The Confession. Quinn stayed in Sterling's guest room that night, which was larger and better appointed than her entire apartment. She didn't sleep, just lay in the expensive sheets, staring at the ceiling, trying to process how her life had transformed from manageable professional struggle to something out of a crime thriller in less than a month. At 2 a.m., she gave up on sleep and wandered into Sterling's kitchen, looking for tea or coffee or anything to calm her racing mind. She found Sterling already there, standing at the windows in dark pants and a t-shirt, a tumbler of whiskey in his hand. "Can't sleep?" he asked without turning around. "No." Quinn leaned against the kitchen island. "You?" "I don't sleep much." Sterling took a drink. Hazard of the lifestyle. Quinn watched him for a long moment, this man who'd somehow become the center of her increasingly complicated life. "Sterling, what Victor Stone said about your business, is it true?" "Which part?" "The illegal operations, the money laundering." The Quinn hesitated. "The violence." Sterling finally turned to face her. "Yes, just that. No excuses, no justifications. Just the flat admission that everything Victor Stone had said was true." "Why?" Quinn asked. "You're already wealthy. You have a legitimate empire. Why risk everything for?" "Because the legitimate empire is built on the foundation of the illegitimate one." Sterling set his glass down with controlled precision. "My family has been running operations in this city for 3 generations. The corporate side is real, but it's also cover for everything else. Money laundering through real estate acquisitions, political influence through strategic investments, protection for people who need it, and consequences for people who threaten us." He met Quinn's eyes. "So yes, everything Stone said is true, and if that's something you can't accept, I'll arrange for you to transfer to a different company with a clean recommendation and 6-month severance." Quinn's hands were shaking. "You'd let me go? Just like that?" "I'd hate it, but yes." Sterling's voice was quiet. "Because the alternative is forcing you to stay in a world that terrifies you, and I won't do that. Not even to keep you close. And if I choose to stay?" Sterling went very still. "Then you need to understand what that means. It means accepting that I'm not the man you thought I was. It means living with security protocols and bodyguards, and the constant awareness that I have enemies who would love to use you against me. It means..." He stopped, his control finally cracking. "It means accepting that I am completely, irrationally, dangerously obsessed with you, and I have been since the moment Finn asked that goddamn question." Quinn's breath caught. "Sterling, the glass." Sterling's laugh was bitter. "You want to know why I slammed the glass? Because I heard you say not yet, and something inside me just snapped. This woman I'd been watching for 2 weeks, this brilliant, fierce, absolutely untouchable woman, was not yet taken. Which meant she could be taken. Which meant some other man could." He cut himself off. "I've never lost control like that. Not in business, not in my personal life, never. And you did it with 2 words." Quinn crossed the space between them before she could second-guess herself. "What if I told you I don't want to transfer? What if I told you that knowing the truth doesn't scare me as much as the thought of walking away from you?" Sterling's eyes went dark. "Then I'd say you're either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both." Quinn was close enough now to feel the heat radiating from him. What did Victor Stone's message really say? Sterling's jaw tightened. "I told you. You told me the sanitized version." "What did it actually say?" "It said, she's prettier in person, and more vulnerable than Blackwood admits. Maybe I should make my offer more directly." Sterling's hands curled into fists. "He was in your apartment, Quinn, looking through your things, learning your patterns, making plans to..." He couldn't finish. "To what?" "To take you from me." Sterling's voice was rough. "And I won't let that happen." Quinn reached up, her hand resting on Sterling's chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath her palm. "Then stop giving me space to choose. Stop being professional and distant and careful. Tell me what you actually want." "You," Sterling said simply. "I want you. In my life, in my world, in my bed. I want to wake up knowing you're safe, because you're with me. I want to eliminate every threat against you before you even know it exists. I want..." His hand came up, fingers tangling in her hair. "I want everything, Quinn. And I hate myself for it because I know I shouldn't." "What if I want it too?" Quinn whispered. "What if I've been avoiding you not because I'm afraid of you, but because I'm afraid of how much I want this?" Sterling's control finally shattered. He kissed her with the kind of desperate intensity that said he'd been restraining himself for weeks, and Quinn responded with equal hunger, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sterling rested his forehead against hers. "This changes everything," he said. "I know. Victor Stone is going to use this. He's going to see the weakness and exploit it. Let him try." Quinn met Sterling's eyes. You said you're obsessed with me? Well, I'm choosing you anyway. Your world, your protection, all of it. So stop trying to push me away and just... She kissed him again, softer this time. Just let me stay. Sterling's arms wrapped around her, holding her like she was something precious and breakable. You're sure? Completely sure. Then you need to know one more thing. Sterling pulled back enough to meet her eyes. The debt I paid off? Consider it a signing bonus for accepting a new position. Quinn's eyebrows rose. What position? Partner. Sterling's smile was slight but genuine. Not just in business, in everything. If you're staying in this world, you're staying as my equal. Which means tomorrow, we transfer ownership of 30% of Blackwood Holdings into your name. Which means you get full access to all operations, legal and otherwise. Which means, Sterling, I can't accept. Yes, you can, because if Victor Stone is coming after you, you need to be protected by more than just my reputation. You need actual power, actual leverage, actual legal protection that comes from being a named partner in this company. Sterling's expression was serious. I'm not giving you the shares out of sentiment. I'm giving them to you because it's the smartest strategic move I can make. You're brilliant, competent, and now you know enough about my operations that I need you either fully in or fully out. And I'm choosing fully in. Quinn stared at him, trying to process what he was offering. That's worth millions. Closer to $200 million at current valuation. Sterling's voice was matter-of-fact. Consider it incentive to not betray me to Victor Stone. I would never... I know. But this way, you won't even be tempted. Sterling kissed her forehead. Welcome to the family business, partner. Chapter 7. Climax. The Trap. The partnership paperwork was finalized within 48 hours. Sterling had lawyers working around the clock to make it happen. By Friday morning, Quinn Foster officially owned 30% of Blackwood Holdings and had access to bank accounts she'd never dreamed of seeing. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like painting a target on her back. Victor Stone's response was immediate. At 3 p.m. on Friday, Quinn received a text from an unknown number with a photo attached. Her mother, outside her treatment center, flanked by 2 men Quinn didn't recognize. Unknown. She's lovely, and so trusting. She actually told my associates where you work. Meet me at the address below at 6 p.m. Come alone, or this conversation gets significantly less friendly. V.S. Quinn's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. She was in Sterling's office, their office now reviewing acquisition documents. Sterling looked up immediately, seeing her expression. What happened? Quinn showed him the text. Sterling's face went absolutely cold, the kind of cold that preceded violence. That son of a Sterling was already moving, pulling out his phone. Marcus, I need full security on Sandra Foster immediately. Yes, the mother. No, I don't care if you have to pull people from other assignments. Do it now. He disconnected and looked at Quinn. Your mother is being secured as we speak. And you are not meeting Victor Stone. He has people watching her. He had people watching her. They're about to have a very bad afternoon. Sterling made another call. It's me. Victor Stone just threatened Sandra Foster directly. I want his entire operation mapped by end of day. Every property, every associate, every financial account. And I want the team ready to move tonight. Quinn listened to Sterling issue orders with terrifying efficiency and realized she was seeing a side of him she'd only heard hints about. This wasn't the CEO making business decisions. This was something else entirely, something dangerous and absolute and completely in control. Sterling, I can't let you. You're not letting me do anything. I'm handling a threat against my partner. Sterling's eyes were hard. Victor Stone crossed a line when he put his hands on your mother. That's not business anymore. That's personal. And I handle personal threats very differently than professional ones. Before Quinn could respond, Sterling's phone rang. He answered, listened for 30 seconds, then smiled a cold, dangerous smile that made Quinn's stomach drop. Perfect. Send the address to Quinn's phone, and make sure Stone knows we're coming. He hung up and looked at Quinn. Your mother is secured. Stone's people scattered the moment my security showed up, and we just got confirmation of where Stone is hiding. What are you going to do? I'm going to explain to Victor Stone, in very clear terms, why threatening you was the worst decision he's ever made. Sterling moved to a safe hidden behind a painting, opening it to reveal. Quinn's eyes widened. Are those guns? Protection. Sterling selected a compact pistol, checking it with practiced efficiency. I don't plan to use it, but Stone needs to understand that threats against you will be met with absolute force. Sterling? This is insane. This is my world. Sterling turned to face her, his expression serious. And if you're staying in it, you need to understand what that means. It means sometimes I handle threats with lawyers and paperwork, and sometimes I handle them more directly. Victor Stone chose direct confrontation, so that's what he gets. Quinn should have been terrified, should have been running for the door, calling the police, doing anything except standing there watching Sterling Blackwood prepare for what was clearly going to be a violent confrontation. But she wasn't terrified. She was angry. Victor Stone had threatened her mother, had broken into her apartment, had tried to use her financial desperation as leverage. And now Sterling was offering to handle it with the kind of decisive action that legal channels would take months to achieve. "I'm coming with you," Quinn said. "Absolutely not. He threatened my mother. I'm not sitting here while you handle it." Quinn crossed her arms. "You said I'm your partner. That means I get a say in how we handle threats against my family." Sterling stared at her for a long moment, then did something unexpected. He laughed. "You're serious. Completely serious. You understand that handling this might involve violence? That it might involve seeing a side of me that you can't unsee? I understand that Victor Stone needs to know that threatening my family has consequences, and I understand that those consequences need to be delivered by both of us." Quinn stepped closer. "You said you wanted me fully in your world. This is me fully in." Sterling studied her face, then nodded slowly. "All right, but you stay behind me. You follow Marcus's instructions without question. And if I tell you to leave, you leave. Agreed?" "Agreed." 30 minutes later, Quinn found herself in an SUV with darkly tinted windows, flanked by Sterling and 3 men who looked like they ate nails for breakfast. They drove to a warehouse in Red Hook, the kind of location that appeared in crime movies right before something bad happened. Victor Stone was waiting inside, looking far too confident for a man surrounded by Sterling's security team. He was younger than Quinn expected, maybe 40, handsome in a polished way, dressed in an expensive suit that suggested he thought this was just another business meeting. Sterling Blackwood. Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. "And the lovely Miss Foster. I'm glad you both could make it. You threatened her mother," Sterling said, his voice dangerously quiet. "I'm here to explain why that was a mistake." "Was it?" "Because from where I'm standing, I just proved how easy it would be to access the people you care about." Victor's eyes slid to Quinn. "Your mother is a lovely woman, by the way. Very friendly. She told my associates all about her brilliant daughter who works for the big bad Blackwood. Seemed very proud." Quinn felt Sterling tense beside her, but she spoke before he could. "My mother is under protection. Your associates are either in custody or running. And you," she stepped forward, ignoring Sterling's sharp inhale, "you just made the worst mistake of your life." Victor's smile faltered. "Is that a threat, Miss Foster?" "It's a statement of fact." Quinn kept her voice steady. "You thought threatening my mother would give you leverage over Sterling. What you actually did was give me a personal reason to destroy you. And unlike Sterling, I don't have a reputation to protect or business relationships to preserve. I'm just someone who's very, very angry that you put your hands on my family." Victor looked at Sterling. "Your secretary has teeth. How charming." "Partner," Sterling corrected coldly. "Quinn owns 30% of my company as of yesterday, which means any threat against her is a threat against Blackwood Holdings, which means you just threatened a Fortune 500 company. How do you think that's going to play out?" For the first time, Victor looked uncertain. "You gave her ownership? That's strategic," Sterling interrupted, "and now completely legal. Which means if anything happens to Quinn or her family, we have the full weight of corporate law behind us. Not to mention," Sterling gestured to the men surrounding them, "the less legal options I'm very comfortable deploying." Victor's confidence was cracking. "You can't just—" "I already did. Your operations in Philadelphia? Shut down as of 2 hours ago. Your financial accounts? Frozen pending investigation into illegal trading practices. Your office lease? Terminated for violation of commercial tenancy laws." Sterling's smile was cold. "Did you really think I'd negotiate with someone who threatened my partner's family?" "I don't negotiate, Victor. I eliminate threats." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Sterling pulled out his phone, showing Victor a series of documents. "That's your bank account statement. Notice the zero balance? And that's the court order freezing your assets pending investigation. And that," Sterling's voice went even quieter, "that's the arrest warrant for corporate espionage that will be executed the moment you leave this building. Unless, of course, you'd like to negotiate." Victor stared at the phone, his face going pale. "What do you want?" "I want you to disappear, leave New York, shut down your operations, and never, ever contact Quinn or anyone in her family again." Sterling stepped closer. "Because if I hear your name associated with her in any context, I won't use lawyers next time. I'll use the kind of solution that doesn't leave paperwork. Do we understand each other? Victor looked between Sterling and Quinn, and whatever he saw in their expressions made him nod. We understand each other. Good. Sterling turned to Marcus. Make sure Mr. Stone gets safely to the airport. And make sure he's on a plane leaving New York within 3 hours. Victor was escorted out, leaving Sterling and Quinn alone in the warehouse. Quinn turned to Sterling, her heart still pounding with adrenaline. Did you really freeze all his accounts? Every single one. Sterling pulled her close. No one threatens you. No one threatens your family. And anyone who tries learns exactly what happens when they cross me. Quinn should have been disturbed by the casual display of power, the ease with which Sterling had dismantled another person's life. But all she felt was relief that her mother was safe, that Victor Stone was gone, and that Sterling had backed up his promise to protect her with absolute, devastating efficiency. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't thank me for protecting what's mine. Sterling's hand cupped her face. That's non-negotiable. Yours? Quinn raised an eyebrow. Ours, Sterling corrected, a slight smile touching his lips. Partners, remember? Partners, Quinn agreed, and kissed him hard enough to prove she meant it. Chapter 8. The Price of Protection. They didn't go back to the office. Sterling drove Quinn to his penthouse, both of them still riding the adrenaline from the confrontation with Victor Stone. The moment they were inside, Quinn turned on him. You can't do that again, she said. Sterling's eyes narrowed. Do what? Make unilateral decisions about handling threats to me without consulting me first. Quinn paced his pristine living room. You froze Victor Stone's accounts, shut down his operations, and threatened him with arrest without once asking if that's how I wanted you to handle it. He threatened your mother. I know what he did, and I'm grateful you handled it. But you made me your partner, Sterling. That means I get a say in how we respond to threats. Quinn stopped pacing, facing him directly. If this is going to work, if we're going to work, you can't just make decisions for me and expect me to smile and accept it. Sterling studied her for a long moment. You're right. Quinn blinked. I what? You're right. I made decisions without consulting you. I saw a threat and I eliminated it using the methods I know best. But that's not partnership. Sterling moved closer. So tell me, how would you have handled Victor Stone? I would have... Quinn stopped, realizing she didn't actually have a better answer. I don't know, but I would have liked to discuss options before you went full Mafia boss on him. Sterling's lips curved. Full Mafia boss? You know what I mean. The freezing accounts, the threats, the warehouse confrontation. Quinn gestured vaguely. That was terrifying and impressive, and I kind of loved watching you dismantle him. But it was also really intense, and I need you to understand that I can't just accept that level of control without having some input, even when the threat is immediate and the stakes are your mother's safety. Quinn's shoulders sagged. I don't know. Maybe. This is all new to me, Sterling. I've spent my entire adult life being completely self-sufficient, solving my own problems, refusing to be dependent on anyone. And now I have a partner who can solve problems with money and power and connections I can't even comprehend. I'm still figuring out how to accept that without feeling like I've lost myself. Sterling closed the distance between them, his hands settling on her shoulders. Then we figure it out together. You tell me when I'm being too controlling. I try to remember that you're capable of handling your own battles. And we both accept that sometimes the solution is going to involve my methods, and sometimes it's going to involve yours. Partnership. Partnership, Quinn agreed. But Sterling, I need you to understand that your protection can't come at the cost of my autonomy. I won't be locked away in a gilded cage, even if that cage is the safest place in New York. I don't want you in a cage. I want you beside me. Sterling's thumb brushed her cheek. But I also need you to understand that my world is dangerous. The people I deal with, the operations I run, they come with real risks. And I can't... His voice roughened. I can't lose you, Quinn. So yes, there will be security protocols. Yes, there will be restrictions. And yes, sometimes I'm going to make decisions fast because waiting for consensus could get you hurt. But I will always listen to your concerns and adjust when I can. Quinn searched his face, seeing the genuine struggle between his protective instincts and his desire to give her freedom. What if I asked you to back off the security? Let me have more independence? Then I'd negotiate, show you the specific threats, explain why certain protocols are necessary, and see if we can find compromises that keep you safe while giving you breathing room. Sterling's hands framed her face. But I won't compromise on anything that puts you in genuine danger. That's my line, Quinn. You can push me on almost anything else, but not that. And if I push anyway, Then we'll fight about it, probably loudly. And then we'll find a solution that works for both of us. Sterling's smile was slight. I'm told healthy relationships involve compromise and communication. I'm new to this, but I'm willing to learn. Quinn felt something tight in her chest loosen. You've never done this before? The relationship thing? Not like this. Not with someone who actually challenges me. Sterling's expression was serious. I've had arrangements, agreements, mutually beneficial partnerships that were mostly about convenience and appearance. But this, he gestured between them. This terrifies me because it actually matters. Because losing you would hurt in ways I'm not prepared for. Because you're not just someone I want to protect, you're someone I want to have. In all the complicated, messy, inappropriate ways that probably make me a terrible person. You're not a terrible person. I'm a criminal who runs a multi-billion-dollar empire as cover for money laundering and extortion. I just threatened a rival with arrest using connections I shouldn't have. I've done things that would horrify you if you knew the details. Sterling's voice was quiet. But I'm trying to be a better person for you. Trying to be someone who deserves you. And if that means learning to negotiate instead of dictate, then that's what I'll do. Quinn kissed him, soft and sweet, and felt him relax against her. When she pulled back, she kept her hands on his chest, feeling his heartbeat under her palms. Okay, here's my proposal for how this partnership works, she said. When there's an immediate threat like Victor Stone sending photos of my mother, you handle it however you need to handle it, and we discuss your methods after the fact. But for ongoing security protocols, lifestyle restrictions, anything that impacts my daily life, we discuss it first. We negotiate. We find compromises. Agreed? Agreed, with one caveat. What? If I believe you're in imminent danger and you disagree, I override your objection. We can fight about it later. But in the moment, my assessment of threat level wins. Sterling's expression was firm. I know that sounds controlling, but I need to know that if I tell you to get behind me or get in the car or leave the building, you'll do it without question. Your life is more valuable than your autonomy in a crisis. Quinn wanted to argue, but she understood the logic. Fine. But you don't get to manufacture crises just to override my autonomy. You use that card in genuine emergencies only. Deal. Sterling sealed it with a kiss that quickly escalated from negotiation to something much more heated. When they finally came up for air, Sterling rested his forehead against hers. Stay here tonight. Not because I'm demanding it, but because I want to wake up next to you and make sure this is real. I'll stay, Quinn said. But Sterling? Tomorrow we're going back to my apartment, and I'm collecting my things without a full security detail watching. I need to prove to myself that I can still move through the world without bodyguards shadowing my every step. Sterling looked like he wanted to argue, but he nodded. Tomorrow. And just Marcus, for my peace of mind. He can wait in the car. In the car, Quinn agreed. You drive a hard bargain, partner. You have no idea, Quinn said, and kissed him again to prove it. Chapter 9. The Unshakable Reality. 6 months later, Quinn walked into Blackwood Holdings at 7:30 a.m. and didn't even notice the stairs anymore. The whispers had shifted from scandalized speculation to grudging respect, partly because she'd proven herself essential to the company's operations, and partly because the partnership structure meant she had actual power now. Power that she wielded with increasing confidence. She found Sterling in their shared office. He'd insisted on removing the wall between their spaces, creating a single massive executive suite with 2 desks positioned so they could work facing each other. It should have been distracting, but somehow the arrangement worked. Sterling looked up when she entered, his expression softening in the way it only did for her. Morning. Morning. Quinn set down her coffee and the files she'd been reviewing. The Philadelphia deal closed. Final signatures came through at 6 a.m. I saw. Well done. It was a team effort. Quinn settled into her chair, pulling up the next acquisition on her list. Speaking of which, Finn wants to know if you're serious about the Boston expansion, or if he should stop putting together preliminary numbers. Tell Finn I'm always serious about expansion. Sterling's lips curved slightly. And tell him to stop asking you to place bets on my business decisions. Quinn laughed. He's not okay, he absolutely is. I didn't take the bet, for the record. What were the terms? He bet me $50 you'd approve the Boston deal within 2 weeks. I said you'd take at least a month to review the options. And I'm not telling you my position because that would be collusion. Quinn's eyes danced with amusement. You'll just have to make your decision based on actual business merits instead of trying to win me $50. Sterling stood, moving around to her desk with the kind of predatory grace she'd learned meant he was feeling possessive. He leaned down, caging her in with his arms on either side of her chair. I could approve it right now, just to watch you lose to Finn. You could. But then I'd know you made a multi-million-dollar business decision just to mess with me, and I'd have to question your judgment as a partner. Fair point. Sterling kissed her, slow and thorough, until Quinn forgot they were in an office where anyone could walk in. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were dark. Have dinner with me tonight, the Italian place you like. Is this a business dinner or a personal dinner? Does it matter? Yes, because if it's business, I'm ordering the cheap wine. And if it's personal, I'm ordering the expensive stuff and making you pay. Sterling laughed, genuine laughter that still surprised Quinn every time she heard it. Personal. Definitely personal. I want to celebrate the Philadelphia deal closing and the fact that you haven't killed me yet for being controlling. The day's still young. Quinn stood, kissing him once more before gently pushing him back toward his desk. Now go be a CEO so I can actually get work done without you distracting me. You're the one who agreed to share an office. Worst decision I ever made, Quinn said, not meaning a word of it. She worked steadily through the morning, fielding calls, reviewing contracts, making decisions that 6 months ago would have terrified her but now felt natural. At some point, she'd stopped thinking of herself as Sterling's employee and started thinking of herself as his equal, a shift that had as much to do with the actual partnership structure as it did with Sterling's consistent efforts to treat her like one. At noon, Finn appeared in the doorway, grinning like he'd won the lottery. Boss. Quinn, got a minute? Sterling looked up, immediately suspicious. What did you do? Why do you assume I did something? Because you only use that tone when you've either made money or caused problems. Finn's grin widened. Made money. The Boston expansion numbers came back better than projected. I'm thinking we should fast-track it. Sterling glanced at Quinn, who was trying very hard not to smile. What's your take? I think, Quinn said carefully, that if the numbers support it, we should move forward. But I'd want to review the full analysis before committing. Agreed. Sterling turned back to Finn. Send us the complete breakdown. We'll review it together and make a decision by end of week. Finn nodded and turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Quinn? You owe me $50. Boss just said end of week, which is well within my 2-week window. Quinn groaned while Sterling laughed. I told you he was serious about expansion. Traitor, Quinn muttered, pulling out her wallet. After Finn left, still grinning victoriously, Sterling came over to Quinn's desk again. This time she knew what was coming and stood to meet him, letting him pull her close. Can I ask you something? Sterling said quietly. Always. Do you ever regret it? Choosing this life, this world, me? Quinn pulled back enough to look him in the eyes. Not even once. Why? Because 6 months ago you were working a normal job, living a normal life. And now you're my partner in both legal and illegal operations. You have bodyguards following you places, and you're navigating a world most people don't even know exists. Sterling's expression was serious. That's a lot to ask of someone. You didn't ask. I chose. Quinn's hand came up to his face. And yes, it's complicated and sometimes terrifying and definitely not what I thought my life would look like. But it's also exhilarating and challenging and full of someone who actually sees me as an equal. So no, I don't regret it. Even when I'm being controlling? Especially when you're being controlling. Because now I know how to push back. Quinn smiled. We're figuring it out, Sterling. It's not perfect, but it's real. And that's worth more than perfect. Sterling kissed her again, deeper this time, until Quinn's phone started ringing with what she knew without looking was an important call. She pulled back reluctantly. Hold that thought, she said, answering the phone. This is Quinn Foster. She listened for a moment, her expression shifting to something Sterling couldn't read. When she hung up, she was smiling in a way that made him nervous. What? That was my mother's treatment center. They want to thank the anonymous donor who's been covering her care. Quinn crossed her arms. Except I know exactly who the donor is. And I told you 6 months ago that I wanted to handle her medical expenses myself now that I have the income. Sterling had the grace to look slightly sheepish. You're handling the ongoing treatment. I'm handling the facility upgrades and the research grant. The research grant. For clinical trials of her specific cancer type. It seemed like a worthwhile investment. Quinn stared at him, caught between exasperation and something that felt dangerously close to overwhelming affection. You funded cancer research. I funded cancer research that might help your mother. There's a difference. Sterling Blackwood, you are the most infuriating, controlling, impossibly generous man I have ever met. Is that a compliment or a complaint? Both. Quinn moved back into his arms. And before you ask, yes, I'm keeping the research grant. Because unlike the medical bills, this actually helps people beyond my mother. but we are having a conversation about boundaries around financial gifts. We can have all the conversations you want. After dinner. Sterling's hand settled on her waist. Speaking of which, there was something else I wanted to ask you about tonight. What? You'll find out at dinner. Sterling's smile was slight but genuine. Trust me? Quinn thought about everything they'd been through, the shattered glass, the threats, the negotiations, the compromises, the fierce partnership they'd built from hostility and attraction. Thought about the man who'd paid her debts and funded cancer research and learned to negotiate instead of dictate, all while running an empire and protecting her with absolutely ruthless efficiency. Yeah, she said softly. I trust you. Sterling kissed her forehead, and Quinn knew without asking that whatever he wanted to talk about at dinner was going to change things again. But she also knew that whatever it was, they'd figure it out together, because that's what partners did. And she and Sterling Blackwood, they were partners in every sense that mattered. That evening at dinner, after the wine had been poured and the appetizers ordered, Sterling reached across the table and took Quinn's hand. Can I ask you something about that day? The glass incident? Quinn's lips curved. I was wondering when you'd bring that up. It's been 6 months. I figured it was safe to discuss without you running for the door. Sterling's thumb brushed across her knuckles. What did you think when I slammed that glass down? Honestly, I thought you were insane. I thought I'd somehow offended my boss so badly that my career was over. Quinn paused. And then I walked into your office and saw the way you were looking at me, and I thought maybe it wasn't about being offended. Maybe it was about something else entirely. It was absolutely about something else entirely. Sterling's expression was serious. That moment, hearing you say, not yet, it fundamentally changed my world. Because suddenly this woman I'd been watching from a distance, this brilliant, untouchable woman, was available. And the thought of someone else seeing that, of Finn or anyone else trying to... He stopped himself. I lost control. Completely. And I never lose control. I know. That's what made it terrifying and thrilling at the same time. Quinn squeezed his hand. For the record, I'm glad you did. Slam the glass, I mean. Because otherwise we might have spent months dancing around whatever this is instead of diving in head first. Sterling pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket and set it on the table between them. Quinn's eyes went wide. Before you panic, Sterling said quickly, this is not a proposal. Yet, we've only been together 6 months, and I'm not that presumptuous. Then what? Open it. Quinn opened the box to find a ring, not an engagement ring, but something more subtle. A platinum band with a single small diamond, elegant and understated. It's a promise, Sterling said quietly. A promise that I'm in this completely. That I'm committed to figuring out how to be a partner instead of a dictator. That I trust you with my world, my business, and my heart. And that someday, when we're both ready, I'm going to ask you properly. Quinn's throat felt tight. Sterling, you don't have to wear it if you don't want to, but I wanted you to have it. To know that you're not just someone I'm protecting or controlling or keeping close out of obsession. You're someone I'm choosing every day to build a life with. Quinn slipped the ring on her right hand, the one that didn't carry engagement implications, but said clearly that she was taken, committed, his. It's perfect. You're perfect. I'm really not. You're perfect for me. Sterling raised his wineglass. To partnerships, broken glass, and incredibly poor timing. Quinn laughed, raising her own glass. To partnerships, and to the fact that sometimes the most inappropriate, complicated, absolutely terrifying choices turn out to be the right ones. They drank, and Quinn felt the ring's weight on her finger, a promise of more to come, of negotiations and compromises, and fierce protection, balanced with hard-won autonomy. 6 months ago, she'd frozen with reports in her arms while Finn O'Malley asked an innocent question. 6 months ago, Sterling Blackwood had shattered both crystal and composure over 2 simple words. And now they were partners building an empire together, navigating a dangerous world as equals, and planning a future that started with broken glass and ended with something unshakable. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't safe. It wasn't anything Quinn had planned. But it was real, and chosen, and absolutely worth every complicated moment. Just like Sterling had promised that first night in his office, their connection was powerful, dangerous, and absolutely real, and Quinn Foster wouldn't have it any other way. If this story touches your heart even a little, go ahead and subscribe, join our family of hope and love, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Let's share this journey together.